Picture this scenario for a moment. The argument is over. The dust has settled. You've presented your case, perhaps even acknowledged your own faults, and you wait. You wait for that crucial moment of reconciliation, that simple admission of wrongdoing, that one phrase that rebuilds the bridge. "I'm sorry." But it never comes. Instead, you get silence, or deflection, or worse, a subtle re-blaming that flips the entire conflict back onto you. That look that says, "I will never admit fault, because to do so is to empower you and weaken myself." Here's the core truth that explains this baffling behavior. When some women refuse to apologize, it's not a sign of stubbornness. It's a fundamental psychological defense mechanism against perceived vulnerability and a deep-seated fear of imperfection. For them, an apology isn't an act of humility, it's an act of self-annihilation. To admit fault is to shatter the carefully constructed facade of being flawless, always right and beyond reproach. This pattern is often rooted in a fragile ego that cannot withstand even the slightest crack. An apology is seen not as a path to repair, but as a permanent tattoo of failure. It grants psychological victory to the other person, which is an intolerable outcome. The act of holding on to their rightness, even when clearly in the wrong, becomes a desperate attempt to maintain internal coherence and external control. They will twist facts, rewrite history, or simply stonewall anything to avoid the perceived humiliation of an admission. This isn't about the specific mistake, it's about the psychological cost of owning that mistake. For these individuals, acknowledging fault triggers an overwhelming sense of shame and inadequacy, emotions they are entirely unwilling or unable to process. The refusal to apologize becomes a desperate act of self-preservation, a barrier against a flood of negative self-perception. It's a performative act of defiance, not against you, but against their own inner critic. The psychological consequence of living with someone who refuses to apologize is profound. It erodes trust and prevents true intimacy. Without the ability to admit fault, genuine reconciliation becomes impossible. Every conflict leaves behind a festering wound, a residue of unaddressed wrongs that accumulate over time. You are left constantly battling an invisible enemy, a narrative where you are always the aggressor and they are always the blameless. The relationship becomes a psychological battlefield where honesty is punished and self-protection reigns supreme. This behavior also subtly shifts accountability. By never apologizing, she ensures that the blame always defaults to someone else: you, circumstances, fate. This allows her to operate without the burden of introspection or the need for behavioral change. She is, in her own mind, perpetually righteous, and therefore never truly accountable for the relational friction she creates. This creates a deeply frustrating and ultimately unsustainable dynamic for any partner seeking equality and genuine connection. We've only just scratched the surface of this incredibly destructive psychological pattern and the ways it sabotages genuine connection. If you're ready to uncover more hard truths about the hidden wiring of human behavior and protect yourself from these patterns, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Join the Psyche Depth community for more unfiltered insights. The refusal to apologize is not an oversight. It is a calculated defense against vulnerability. It's a refusal to engage in the messy human process of mutual responsibility and repair. And until this psychological barrier is understood, relationships caught in this cycle will remain perpetually stuck, devoid of true growth or peace. You are not seeking a confession. You are seeking a crack in the emotional armor, a willingness to be human.